We've got a big show for you today with a distinct focus on the darker side of technology. Joining us later on will be Senior Lecturer in Political Science and Economics, Michael DePercy. He'll be here to chat about why artificial intelligence is inherently racist. Michael will also delve into the treacherous roots of the anti-nuclear movement in Australia. Also on the show, James Allen with the death of DEI. That is diversity, equity and inclusion, and it cannot come soon enough. Our first guest will be Christina Talaco, CEO of the Coalition for Conservation, who is here to talk about the real-world difficulty of rolling out the renewable energy grid at pace, as Mr. Bowen likes to say. In Victoria, a government report revealed that 70% of the state's agricultural land will have to be handed over to renewable energy interests with a 10 to 20 year lifespan. Now, who pays to buy all this land? Well, you will, in your energy bill, in your taxes. Land acquisition is just one of those buried costs that no one wants to talk about. And having used this public money to purchase the land, what happens to it 20 years from now when the decommissioning process on all of these things starts? Are these virtuous renewable energy companies really going to dig their concrete slabs out of the ground and put everything back the way they found it? If we want to know what the future looks like, we should consider looking at the past. In 2023, I wrote an article for the Spectator about the government's sudden and short-lived love affair with wave energy, which saw millions of dollars handed over to projects on the promise that this cheap, endless and free energy in the water would solve all of our problems. It will surprise none of you, I'm sure, to learn that most of these projects ended up as rusting metal corpses left in the sea. Quite literally, litter. Having absorbed millions of dollars of government money on unproven ideas, they eventually vanished, the companies as well. Now, you're not going to get your money back out of that kind of thing, I guarantee you. In one example, the body of Ocean Lynx's MK3 wave generator became an eyesore for a local bay. After threats of legal action, the company eventually agreed to drag it out from view and dump it 50 miles offshore in 2017. The government also gave the company $4.4 million via the Australian Renewable Energy Agency for another wave project. Now, this new machine was called Green Wave, and it was damaged by its towing process and it sank before it even got to be installed. It was another massive embarrassment. Now, furious South Australian residents demanded the government do something about these wrecks, but clearing up the mess left by renewable energy companies is expensive. And the South Australian Infrastructure Minister at the time said that the best decision was basically to cut these things off at water level and just leave them there, for the fish and stuff. Well, local fishing boats will still have to navigate around these things for the rest of time until they rot away. And while there is endless cash to build new renewables monstrosities, there never seems to be any loose change left around to get rid of them. Now, the question is being asked, what will happen to the corpses of 60 to 100 metre high wind turbines and all the concrete and steel infrastructure drilled into the bedrock? Will this be left to rot in our oceans for the rest of time? Almost certainly. If the South Australian government can't get rid of a couple of sunken wave machines, there is no chance they'll remove the tens of thousands of wind turbines that we are installing to reach our net zero 2030-2050 goals. Now, our oceans will end up looking like that scene from Kevin Costner's Waterworld, where he swims down through the ruins of civilization. And while some moral busybody city politicians complain that your coffee cup will end up in the ocean or landfill, they are the ones campaigning to put these huge steel things right along our pristine coastline, ruining the country's natural beauty for generations to come. And what will become of Australia's farms and food-growing regions? Are they to be left with bits of broken turbine and shattered solar panel littered all over the ground, huge chunks of concrete no one will ever be able to get rid of? Or will they be resold to large foreign investors and conglomerates, effectively pushing small farmers off the land under the banner of renewable energy? We don't know, because Mr. Bowen doesn't like to talk about the consequences of these projects, or what happens after the shiny election hashtag rots off. Bowen and Co refuse to provide costings on the life cycle of these projects, repeating the vague and obviously false promise that renewables provide cheap power. They do not. They are also not particularly green. People don't like getting up close and personal with a wind turbine or a solar panel or a transmission line. Even former supporters of renewable energy don't want them in their local valleys, as evidenced by a rising tide of court cases and legal objections, which is stopping renewable energy projects right across the state. Renewable energy was this utopian idea, but it makes for a terrible neighbour. It's no surprise that people have started eyeing up nuclear energy instead, and this change of heart might explain the scare campaign started by Labor and the Greens this week after opposition leader Peter Dutton included 5 to 6 potential sites where nuclear energy might become part of the state's energy plan. Now, would you live near a nuclear plant? Well, yes. If you live in Sydney, most of you have been doing this for your entire lives. That's the beauty of nuclear energy. It doesn't take up much space, it can hide itself, and it is a good neighbour.